Hello, everyone. How y'all doing tonight? Happy Tuesday to you all, and happy World Mental Health Day as well. Hope you all have
Yeah.
had a wonderful day, and I tell you what I was thinking about today, because KD is back with us, and I was thinking about how ironic it was for her to be here today on this World Mental Health Day. How we it was
Yeah.
actually scheduled for this particular day, and it was just so appropriate for her to be here with us entering to the holidays and knowing that that's one of the most stressful times of the year for a lot of people that deal with their mental health struggles. But we have
Yeah.
KD here, who's an associate mental health therapist and coach that's here to give you some tools to help you through these holiday seasons, and not just the holidays, but life in
Hmm.
general. So I
Yeah.
just want you all to just tune in. Make sure you have, I know I have my notepad and my pen. I'm ready to write down some stuff because I know it would definitely be life changing. And so, KD, I thank you for so much for being here tonight. I'm just going to turn it over to you.
Okay. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you see me looking down, I got my notes right here. All right. Happy Tuesday, everybody. And I didn't even really think about or realize that I was speaking on World Mental Health Day until she just said it. So everything works out the way it's supposed to work out. And I am definitely grateful to be here today. So, as Tiffany said, we are entering into the holiday season, right? And so, what I have learned over time is that the holiday season starts around the beginning of October and it doesn't end until technically February if you count Valentine's Day, right? And so, that's a long time. That's a long time. Also, what happens around this time is the weather starting to change. The weather's starting to change in most places. I'll say in most places because in Alabama we're wearing jackets, but I have a friend in California who said it was 110 the other day. So in most places, the season is starting to change. Well, what happens when the season starts to change? Two things come to mind. Number one, these bones, these hands, these muscles, they start to ache, right? And there's a direct correlation between our physical health and our mental health. So if during the summer and fall or beginning of fall and summer and spring, I'm up, I'm getting ready to move around, but when the fall comes, I'm not able to move as well. My body is hurting more. It's harder to get out of the bed. Then it's going to be easier for me to fall into a rut. What is the other biggest change that happens as we change seasons? It gets darker earlier. It gets darker earlier. It was about 2 years ago when it hit me, and I realized that I myself have a mood shift if I'm not proactive and if I'm not intentional when this season starts to change, right? How did I realize this? Well, when it got darker, I would be driving home and I realized that I felt a sadness, right? And this can happen at any age. So I want you to not only talk about it with your friends and family and partners, but also with your children. Also with your children. Think about when we were younger. We loved when the seasons changed back, right? When it would be dark, when it would not be dark outside until 7 or 8 o'clock. When you could stay outside till 8 o'clock because it's still bright. So as a child, we also did not necessarily like when it got dark. What time is it getting dark? Maybe like 6 o'clock now, right? And pay attention to your children. I pick my daughter up from gymnastics at 7, and so when we drive home, or cheer at 7, when we drive home, we enjoy the sunset. So she'll make comments about how the sunset was beautiful, how she loved looking at it, and then one day it wasn't there. And she was just kind of sitting there on the way home, and she was like, I guess that's the end of our sunset drives. And I realized in that moment that I need to address it with her, that I need to pay attention with her because this is a change. This is a change. Not now they don't It doesn't affect them a lot because they are inside around this time, but if you're out and about, right? And it can impact you. If you work 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 or 9 to 6, when you get off, it's going to be dark. If you work a 12-hour shift, 5 to 5, when you go in, it's going to be dark. When you get home, it's going to be dark. And so that's what I want to talk about today: emotional wellness, embracing your emotional wellness. Embrace it means to not ignore it, to not pretend it doesn't exist, to not sweep it under the rug. You know, if I don't talk about it, it won't happen. That's not true. It's still going to happen. So let's embrace it. Let's embrace our emotional wellness. So, first, let's understand what emotional wellness is. Well, emotional wellness, the reason I use the word emotional wellness is it sounds like and can be perceived as a more positive side of mental health. Because sometimes people are quick to say, I don't have any mental health issues. And if you do, that's okay. We all do. Stress, anxiety, we all do. But emotional wellness is more of a proactive. Let us talk about our wellness rather than talking about fixing our health, right? So what are some things we can do because we want to navigate these holidays with hope? Well, first, let's talk about what some of the challenges are during the holidays. We talked about the weather. Oh, I forgot I got that background on. I was like, where's my finger going? So we talked about the weather, right? We talked about the weather. Let's talk about finances because there is a direct, I know y'all probably think that I think it's a direct correlation between everything and mental health. And that's because I do. And that's because it is. So finances and mental health, there is a correlation. Let me tell you how it correlates as far as holidays. Of course, there's the obvious. I'm stressing about finances, prepare for Christmas. I'm stressing about finances and buying gifts. What about the things such as I need to turn my heater up? Do I have money to turn my heat up? Or do I need to grab an extra blanket, right? Do I have an extra blanket? Those are the kind of things that sometimes people stress about that if you don't stress about, you're fortunate. But when you stress about those things, stress is a part of our emotional wellness, right? So when we are going through the holidays, we're talking about the weather change, the daylight is changing, right? We're talking about it's harder to get out of bed in the morning. So if you're someone who deals with depression or depression-like symptoms, and it's already hard for you to get out of bed, like on a bright Sunday, July, Thursday morning, it's already a struggle for you to convince yourself to get out of bed. How much harder is it going to be to convince yourself when it's cold outside, when it's cold in the room, when you just want to grab that blanket and fold it over, right? How much harder is it? Another thing about the holidays, you start to see families together. And if you don't have a family because of loss or because of grief, that can be hard. That can be hard, right? If you've lost your family to death, if you've broken up with a relationship, right? If your children are in their first semester away from home, things will look different for you. See, we often don't think about the things we grieve not because of death. A relationship, a change in job, your children being away at college, or if you are the child, you're away from your family, right? So put yourself in this situation. Imagine that you are a freshman at college. This is your first time away from home, right? You just went in school in August. You did good August because there was so much excitement going on, September, football games, all these things. Well, now we get into October. This is around the time my mom will start pulling out her fall decorations, right? This is around the time she would send me into the dollar store because you got to find the allspice, y'all, before they raise it to $7. You know, you got all these traditions, but you're away from home. We have to check on those kids so that we can help them embrace their emotional wellness. We can check on their mental health, right? And so those are some things I want you to think about in addition to not having family to spend the holidays with. Maybe this is your first holiday season because you lost a parent. Maybe this is your 10th holiday season because you lost a parent, right? Remember, it doesn't always, for most people, there's not a time you don't remember or think about the person you lost to death or not to death. And around the holiday season, it may hurt more. So let's talk about some strategies for our emotional wellness. What are some things we can do? If you have lost someone, what I encourage you to do is to allow yourself, if you feel this is, if I cannot talk, if you feel this is something you can handle, I encourage you to embrace those memories, right? One of my favorite things when all my siblings are at home is for us to sit on the couch and just talk about what we remember as a child, right? So if you've lost someone to death, that'd be a good way to do it. If you have lost someone not to death, we're going to assume that losing them was for the best, right? And so maybe you need to replace those memories. You're not erasing them, but maybe you need to make new memories, right? Maybe you've gone no contact with your family. You need to make new memories. You need to create a new circle, because it's important to acknowledge what you feel. And sometimes it's important to sit in what you feel. But there is a time where it's also important to move forward. To move forward, right? So let's talk about some practical ways we can move forward, because I like to give practical steps. My favorite one, and you'll probably hear me say this for anything I ever talk about because it's important, but the way we understand it is different. I need you to practice self-care. I need you to practice self-care. Now, I know some of you hear that and you're like, oh my gosh, I don't have money for that. And yes, self-care sometimes can require money. It doesn't always. Because self-care is anything that feeds your soul, right? Anything that pours back into you when you feel like you have been depleted. So what are some self-care tips that don't cost money? Some self-care tips that do not cost money. You can sit in nature, right? And you could really write your love. What if you sat outside? What if you wrote your loved one a letter and you tucked it away in the back of a journal? What if you sat outside and you really started to embrace the feelings you were having? You didn't tuck them away. Because sometimes people feel guilty for feeling sad or angry or all these things around the holiday. And you shouldn't. Because whether it's December, whether it's July, whether it's January, you're going to experience different feelings. So even if you have to journal and say, listen, it is Thanksgiving week and I feel overwhelmed because I'm about to have to go and sit and eat some turkey with some people that I do not like, or some people that do not like me, or some people that have abused me. Because let's remember that every family gathering is not a positive experience. Every family gathering is not a positive experience, right? And so first, I feel like I went in a circle just then, but I had to say that because that's one of the key things that I'm very cautious to check in with people around the holidays is just because you have family. So we talked about not having family and not having friends because of loss, right? But let's talk about when you have family and that's the stressor. Maybe having the family, maybe going to the event, maybe going to the dinner is the stressor. I don't want to have to sit across from my uncle that abused me and nobody said anything. Right? I don't want to have to sit across from these people who do not accept me, who do not value me, who have caused me emotional trauma. Every family can absolutely be toxic. Yeah, I'll be checking in with my counseling clients on Wednesday and Thursday. Before you go cut that turkey, just call and let me know you okay. Just call and let me know you okay. Because you'll be surprised the things people have to endure. And so what do you do when you have to go and be around this family? Because it's easy to say, oh, you don't have to be around them, set boundaries. And those are things we'll talk about. But what about the person who's not there yet? Because let's be real and let's be honest. There's been some times we needed to set boundaries and we weren't there yet. Here and here, with our heart and our mind, we weren't there yet. We knew we needed to set boundaries. It sounded good to say we needed to set boundaries, but this is my family. This is the holiday season. My grandma's going to cut up if I don't come home. Let's just be real. There are some people who are not there yet. And that's okay because it's a journey. It's a process. Right? And so what do? You go back to what we talked about, the self-care. You have to be intentional. If you know this is going to deplete you, how are you going to pour back into yourself? Or how are you going to prepare yourself? I encourage you to do some affirmations and to do some journaling to yourself, right? Because I believe that once you set the foundation of what you believe about yourself, what you know to be true, then you can handle and withstand, not that you should have to, but you can withstand people trying to recreate a narrative, because people do that. People do that, right? So we talked earlier about self-care doesn't always cost money. And like Trevay said, it does require intentionality, yes. Because you can go for a walk. It's getting cooler outside, right? So you can go for a walk. You can sit outside and journal. Journaling, the thing that turns people off about journaling that I want to dispel the myth of is that it has to be long, and it doesn't. Now, sometimes you're going to start writing, and you're going to be on page 2, then you're going to be on page 3 because you ain't going to be able to stop. But sometimes all you have is today was not the day. Or tomorrow I got to go be with my family. Or I saw a family today at Christmas time and I really miss my ex. Right? So, number 1, self-care is important and it is necessary, and it doesn't have to cost money because self-care feeds your soul. I saw a quote or TikTok or something the other day that I shared, and this girl said that self-care sometimes is doing things I don't want to do right now. My present self does not want to do them, but I know that it is going to better my future self. And that was good, because what you're doing is not necessarily for you at that moment. Say, okay, let me make an example. If I'm burnt out, the self-care is not necessarily going to keep me from being burnt out because I'm already burnt out. It's going to help me in the future. It's going to help me be able to deal with things better. It's going to help me be able to burn out less. Yes, less quickly. Right? So we got to do the self-care. The second thing I want you to do is you got to acknowledge your feelings. You got to embrace them. You got to acknowledge them. You already have them. Feelings are not good or bad. Feelings are not good or bad. They just are what they are based on your experiences, based on your environment, right? Feelings aren't good or bad. And I'm going to share this in the group because I love this. And I got another one that I got coming that I got to look into, but I'm just going to share the one I got. It's a feelings wheel, y'all. And I know it seems elementary, but it is not. So the way this feelings wheel work is there's 3 levels, 3 circles. The inside may say something like anger, right? Anger. Anger is a primary feeling. There's something underneath that. So then you go to the second level and you look at, there's like 8 or 9 choices, and you really explore what you're feeling, right? What are you feeling? Are you feeling disappointment? Are you feeling fear? Are you feeling rejection? And then you identify that, and then you go out another layer. And so you can go from saying I'm angry to saying I feel rejected by my family. And so me seeing these other families out here make me angry. So I want you to practice self-care, number 1. Acknowledge your feelings, number 2. Because a lot of times we feel like if I don't feel the feelings, they don't exist. If I don't acknowledge the feelings, they don't exist. That's not true. Because if you don't control the feelings are inevitable. They're coming. It's like if you put a Mentos inside of a Coke, it is going to explode. Right? So I always tell my clients, we can talk about the feelings here in this semi-controlled environment. Or you can be in the middle of Hobby Lobby and have a breakdown. You could be at Publix. Somebody could ask you to pass in the cranberry sauce and you could just break down. Right? So it's best if you acknowledge the feelings that you have. I'm sad. I'm angry. I'm upset. I'm scared. I'm scared. Because for some of us, as we go into the holiday season, we're going to revert back into a child. What does that look like? Let's stay with the example I gave you of having to go and sit at this table with your family, right? Now, you may remember these family members not being so nice to you when you were younger. And so when you're in therapy, you're like, yeah, I need to tell them this. I need to set boundaries. I need to confront them. But when you get in that environment, you may shrivel back up into that little child. And that's okay. Right? Because it takes time. It's a journey. So you need to acknowledge those feelings. I am scared. You cannot heal what you do not reveal. I will say that forever and ever. You cannot heal what you do not reveal. And sometimes that's scary to people because they're like, I don't want to reveal my feelings to everybody. You don't have to. Guess who you got to reveal it to? You. You got to reveal it to yourself. You can't heal it until you reveal it to self. Right? So I can say all these things to all these people, but am I acknowledging my feelings to self? You cannot heal what you do not reveal. So we're going to do our self-care, right? We're going to acknowledge our feelings, right? And then we are going to create a support system throughout this holiday season. You have to have a support system. I know we talked a lot about family at the beginning, but that's because that's the easiest example. And a lot of people struggle with that because they say, oh, I don't have family, or you may be sad because you don't have family. But what if you're sad because you do got family? So I had to go ahead and say that up front. So the third one is you're going to create a support system. Why you need a support system? Because you need somebody to check in on you and you need to check in on somebody. You need someone to check in on you and you need to check in on somebody. Hey, how you doing over there? Is everything okay? Have you eaten? Have you had any water? Because that's how, let me tell you something. That's the first thing that goes with self-care. That's the first thing that we will cut out. Oh my God, it's 7:00. I haven't eaten today. I'll ask people, when's the last time you had some water? And if I'm being honest, sometimes I got to ask myself that, honey. And they're like, water? Like, what does that got to do with anything? Because I want to know how you're caring for yourself. So when you have a support system, they are going to check in on you, right? They're going to ask you and hold space for you. How are you doing? And they're not going to want that answer of, I'm good. Oh, these Christmas lights are out. I'm wonderful. Are you? Are you wonderful? Or if I lean in for a hug, are you going to crumble? Because you needed that. Right? And so what does this support person look like? Not somebody that's going to be blasting you on social media. Not someone that's passive aggressive. You need someone who understands. You need someone who understands the fragility of your mental health. The fragility of your emotional wellness, right? And they can check in on you and they can hold you accountable. You have to have a support system that you allow to hold you accountable. So if I ask Tiffany to be my support system, but then I always lie to her, that's not benefiting me, right? I can't have her call me and be like, hey, Tiffany, Look, I need you to call me this time of the year. I really struggle with that. And then she calls me, and I'm like, oh God, is she calling me again? Or, hey Tiffany, I'm good. Yeah. No, I'm not going to do an emotional dump, but I'm gonna be like, hey, today is not necessarily a good day for me. Absolutely use discernment because everyone does not need to be your support system. Mm-mm. So I'm not going to emotionally dump. It's not going to be me talking 90%, her talking 10%. It's a general check in. It may look like, Tiffany, look, today's not a good day. And she may say, because you don't have to be the fixer for everybody, she may say, do you have an appointment scheduled with your therapist? Do you want to go for a walk? When is your next appointment? Have you followed up on your prescriptions? Because it's okay to have medication. We just got to slide that in there, right? You have to trust that person to do what you ask them to do, right? So we're doing self-care. We're acknowledging our feelings. We're creating a support system. We're giving ourselves grace. We're giving ourselves grace. Because just because it's the holiday season, excuse me, you don't have to walk around all happy and willy-nilly. You can. It's okay. But you don't have to. You don't have to. You do not have to. I want to say one more thing about the support system. It just came to me. Thank you, Lord. When you check in on your support system, there should be boundaries. I know I mentioned about not I know I mentioned about not emotionally dumping, but let me share this with you. I just be out here sharing everything with the tribe. Like I just don't know what be going on. But sometimes, and I have struggled with this myself, and so I feel like if I have struggled with it or if I dealt with it, it's important for me to share it because I feel like other people may have as well. If you are in a good space, right? And the person you're checking in on, or a friend or a family member or whoever around you, this is a part of embracing your emotional wellness. If you are in a good space, somebody around you is not, do not feel you have to dim your light. Do not feel like it's wrong for you to be in a good space because they're not in a good space. Do not feel like you have to make yourself feel down because they're down. Right? Why am I sharing it? Because so often I've seen people do that. I've heard people do it and I've experienced it. Right? I may call my friend to check on her. Hey, how you doing? And she'll say, oh, I'm not doing too good. How are you? And I freeze because I don't know what to say. Because in that moment, I feel fantastic, y'all. Right now in this season of my life, I feel fantastic. But everyone around me isn't fantastic. But I have had to learn to embrace my emotional wellness. Right? Up here at the title says embracing your emotional wellness. You have to, when you can be a support system for other people and not allow it to impact how you feel. Why? Because if I'm feeling good and they're not, that's okay. Own that, and then you help them in the way that you can help them. Because there may come a day where you don't feel good and you have squandered the days you did feel good because you felt like you had to match them. Right? That's why you have to be careful what you say when people say I match energies. We don't match energies. We don't do that. Okay? I just have to double back and say that. So, yes, empathize. Yes, I had to learn that. That was a game changer for me because I remember feeling like I'm always sad. No, you always say it because you are taking ownership of everyone else's stuff around you. And so when you did not feel sad, when you truly felt happy, you told yourself you were sad because you felt guilty for feeling happy. So you missed your happy time. You missed it. Now, they're not going to miss theirs, but you missed yours. Yeah. So we're going to do self-care. We're going to acknowledge our feelings. We're going to find a support system. I forgot what I was saying after that. Yeah, I just be going. I'd be so excited Oh, yes, my favorite one. My favorite one. I probably said that already. We have to manage. Let me say something. Yeah. Great. Thank you, Tony. Oh, I touched the screen and it came up, y'all. I ain't even no. Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Thank you, girl. You have to give yourself grace, right? You have to give yourself grace. Just because it is the holiday season, you do not have to pretend. You do not have to be happy and jolly all the time. Allow yourself grace. Because sometimes we will feel like, oh, it's the holiday season, I have to feel this way. Or it's the holiday season, I have to buy. If you can't afford, don't buy, because that's going to send you into a cycle of stress, mental health breakdown because your finances. So you're going to give yourself grace. If you feel happy today but you don't tomorrow, that's okay. If you're not looking forward to the holidays, that's okay. If you don't even want to go home and see the people for the holidays, that is okay. That is okay, y'all. It is okay. It's a lot of times in life people haven't said that to us. It is okay. Let me share something with y'all that I share with my clients a lot. The word obligation. The word obligation is heavy. It's heavy. Obligated to go home, obligated to sit quietly, obligated to take the jabs of your family at the holidays, obligated to buy gifts, obligated to spend money for holiday parties, obligated to go on Christmas vacations, obligated to do all these things at work, sign up for Secret Santa, potluck, all these things. Obligated to smile when you don't feel like it. Obligated to tolerate them because that's your mom. Obligated to tolerate them because they could be dead. Obligated. Obligation is a heavy word that doesn't serve you. As my mother, as my whoever, as whatever, I love you not out of obligation. I don't want anybody to love me out of obligation. I don't want anybody to buy me anything out of obligation. Right? So during the holiday season, do not feel obligated. That's where the grace comes in. Give yourself grace. If you can't buy everybody a gift, if you can't spend $1,000 per child, if you can't bring nothing but paper plates and paper cups, if you need a moment at the family dinner to go and cry, if you need a moment to go and meditate, if you don't want to smile, give yourself grace. If you said this was the year that you was going to have a picture with matching pajamas and your new man, but you didn't make it, give yourself grace. Give yourself grace. That is a key factor in embracing your emotional wellness. Giving yourself grace. We are so hard on ourselves. And that leads me to my next one. Managing our expectations. Managing our expectations. This comes up a lot when I'm talking about emotional wellness and mental health, right? What are your expectations for the people around you? Do they know you have these expectations for them? What are your expectations for yourself? Are you holding yourself to these expectations? Right? So if I'm expecting you to show up for me, and I never say that, and then you don't show up, so now I'm upset. So now I'm internalizing you don't love me. Now I'm internalizing I don't have anybody. And now I'm going into a deep depression because I never spoke those expectations. So we have to manage those expectations externally. What are we expecting from everybody else? Is it realistic? And do they know? How many times has someone said something to you or got mad at you and you were like, I didn't even know. I didn't know. I had no idea. We have to manage our expectations, right? Because when you don't manage your expectations, it sets you up for disappointment. It sets you up for disappointment, right? Okay, few more here. Coping with loss. Coping with loss. We talked a bit before about grief, so I'll just briefly go over that. Coping with loss. Acknowledge the person. If it's a death, it's okay to acknowledge them. You don't have to skirt around it. You don't have to pretend they never existed. You don't have to get over something because it's been 2 or 3 years. That's the biggest thing I want you to take from the coping with loss. It doesn't matter if this person has been gone 5, 10, 20 years. You don't have to be over it. There's a different level of functioning you should have as time goes on, but you don't have to be over it. So do not let anyone escort you into a way, into a, no, do not let anyone put expectations on you from that you should be over something because it's been a certain amount of time, because that's not true, right? The next two go together. Gratitude, which is life changing. Gratitude and perspective shifting are life changing, and they help us manage our emotional wellness, like Tiffany said, all year long. All year long. But find something every day that you are grateful for. Every day, find something you're grateful for, because what will happen is, see, our brain is a muscle, right? Our brain is a muscle. And as you start to use it in certain ways, it starts to shape in certain ways, right? Just like when you work out. You can't work out wrong, like holding a barbell wrong, and expect your muscles to form properly. Depending on what part of the arm you want to work, that depends on, that determines what how you do the weights, right? It's the same thing with our brain. Gratitude. What is something you are thankful for every day? So what I want you to think of right now is, today is October 10th and it is 7:39. What is one thing, and share it in the chat, what is one thing today you are grateful for? Right? And sometimes I challenge myself and I say, don't say life. I'm definitely always grateful for life though. But I want to learn how to find other things, because when you start to look at different things, you will start to see. When you look for positivity, you'll see it. When you look for happiness, you'll see it. When you look for miracles and all these things, you'll see it. So what's something you are grateful for today? What's something you're grateful for? Today I am grateful for, and mine would be the opportunity to speak to people about something I love, right? The opportunity, because number one, I could not be thought of. Number two, that means I had to have an education and experience. And number three, that means that if I help one person on this live today, I feel like it was worth it, right? So what are the things you're grateful for? Tiffany said that she is grateful for the Teach Me Tribe. Yes. I am grateful for accountability. My God. To be grateful for accountability shows a level of maturity, my friend. Because some people are scared of that word, honey. They feel like accountability is a cuss word. But yes, accountability helps you grow. Accountability requires you to, I was talking with somebody the other day and she was like, because I've healed and I'm attracting friends and relationships at a different level, I got to show up a different way. It's a different level of accountability. And I was like, oh, girl, that's good. You got to be around people that don't let you dim your light, that don't let you, show up down here when you really need to be up here. Yeah. So gratitude, what are you grateful for? As we go into this holiday season, there's a lot to be grateful for. The family that we do have, the life that we do have, the money that we do have. I encourage people, and I encourage you to do this tonight when you get off the live before you go to bed. Take a few moments, right? Again, it's October 10th, 2023. And I want you to think back 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years. And I want you to think about who you were then, how life was then, what your mental health was then, what your financial status was then. Because sometimes we're grinding and we're working and we don't really take time to assess where we've come from, right? And so that helps our mental health. I do it with my clients because we're working and we're trying to get to here. But we don't realize we're not here yet. So we know that part. but we're also not where we used to be, right? We're not where we used to be. So take some time and assess where you've come from. Okay. And the last thing I have for us to do with embracing your emotional healthness is, of course, seek a professional. Seek a professional. It's a non-judgmental. It is a 1 hour where it's focused on you, right? And it is someone who is equipped to help you, to take that load off of you, to help you sort through it, and to give you back what's yours. Because imagine some of the things you're carrying around, some of the stresses you have, some of the frustration, some of the depression, some of the anxiety, it's not even yours to carry. Other people have assigned it to you. Other people have put it on you. You have internalized some things and it doesn't belong to you. It does not belong to you, right? Find you a therapist. Find you someone who, and if you've gone before and it didn't feel right or it didn't work, choose another one. Right? Choose another one until you find the one that is for you. Because there is power in having your feelings validated. There is power, like Trevay said, in the accountability. A therapist is not your yes man, right? So they're going to validate your feelings. They're going to hold you accountable. They're going to be there and hold this space for you. There's a lot of places in life, especially around the holiday season, where we can't feel, or we feel like we can't feel our true feelings. I mean, what if I'm going to look at Christmas lights and I just break down crying? That's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable, right? But that shows me that there's something there I need to deal with. Something there I need to deal with. And so find a therapist in your area. Since COVID, so many therapists, if not all, are now offering a telehealth service where you could be just like this on a computer in your home, in your car, in your off, whatever you need to do, right? Find you a professional. If you need a referral, I can help you find one in your area, right? So that is all I have today for embracing your emotional wellness. I think Tiffany is going to come back and we're going to do Q&A.
I tell you, KD, oh my goodness, if I had the round of applause sound, I would play it.
Thank you.
But
Thank you. Thank
my
you. Thank
goodness,
you.
I could not write fast enough. It was so good, so helpful. I mean, some of the things that you were sharing were things that I've learned along the way on my mental health journey, things that I needed to be reminded of, things that
Mhm.
I'm gonna do,
Yeah.
leading up to this time. Because just like you were talking about grief, how, the person doesn't have to be here or the person
Yeah.
can be here. Those of us who deal with divorce,
Mm.
that's definitely a time
Yeah.
in the year that's really hard
Yeah.
because the dynamics aren't the same anymore.
That's
So
true. That's
I
true.
just love the fact that you really touched on all these different aspects from, I mean, self-care. Let's go through them again. Self-care,
Mm-hmm.
um, boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
having a support system. I think I missed one in between there. Giving yourself grace, managing our expectations. And
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was so good when you were talking about how a lot of times we don't communicate our expectations,
Yes.
and
Yes.
then not just expectations of others, but expectations of ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Or
Sometimes that,
sometimes I've found that we will have high expectations of other people
mhm,
because we know that we don't have a good track record of not disappointing ourselves. So then I'm gonna hold you to a higher standard
mhm,
because I'm not holding myself to that standard.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, that was so good. And then you were saying not expecting things of others that you aren't willing to do yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That was really good. Um, I wrote down here when you were talking about coping with loss, you said you don't have to be over it because it's been a certain time frame.
Hmm.
And I think we in the Black community especially, I don't know how it is in other communities, because I'm not in those communities.
Right.
We do have a tendency to just, put on this face of being strong
Yes.
and
Yes.
not addressing things that we need to address and telling people you just need to get over it.
Yes.
It's been long enough.
It's been long enough.
As if we know what they're dealing with
Hmm.
internally to tell
Yes.
them. But
Yes.
we do it all the time.
We
So I
do.
thought that was so good. And they
I
and they
learned
do
something.
it too.
Yeah, I learned something recently. Maybe a year or so ago, I was working with a client, and she said, "I miss my grandmother's cooking, and I've gained weight trying to find it."
Mm.
And I had never thought of that. Like, I know you miss things about people.
Mhm.
I know you miss hearing their voice, or memories, traditions and things like that. But that's why we can't tell someone they should be over, because we don't know. Like, who would have ever thought, when her family was making comments about her gaining weight, that it's because she's been trying to find the taste of her grandmother's food.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's also it really tells it is really us telling people when we say get over it, like there's some type of destination,
Right.
you
Right.
know, for healing or
Yeah.
for memories,
Yep.
you know, because
Yeah.
for you to say get over it, you're saying um, don't remember, don't acknowledge,
Right. Yep.
don't have the, I mean, because even now I lose count of how many years it's been since my grandmother has passed away. She was my second grandmother that passed away, and we had a really close relationship. But sometimes it feels like just yesterday, just because certain
Yes.
memories that might come up that
Yeah.
remind me of her or moments that I have. I was like, oh man, I really wish my grandmother was here. She would have
Right.
than the other.
Right.
But to just to say get over it, I mean, can you
We're,
really just get over
I
it?
don't think so, because those memories are a core part of who we are.
Yeah.
And there's certain, even if we could forget it, there are certain memories we don't want to forget.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Because so
Yeah.
many of it has made us to who we are today.
Absolutely.
Without
Absolutely.
those memories, it's hard um, to even exist in so many ways. Now, guys, if you all have any questions, please put in the chat. I'm just doing a recap right now. Um, and then you were talking about gratitude, perceptive shiftness. I thought that was really good.
Hmm.
Um, access where let me see, access where you're come from. Let me see, what was I trying to say? I was trying to write fast. Do you remember what you okay? Because I said, oh, assess. I wrote the wrong
Oh,
word.
yes, yes, assist,
Assess.
yes. Because
Assess.
we do all this work, with our therapists, with our coaches, all these things, and we don't look back to see. Oh, wow, because all we focus on is I haven't got here, so that makes us sad. I haven't got here. I haven't got here. I haven't got here. But look where you have come from. Look at what is different about you, what growth you do have, what progress you have made.
Yeah, yeah, and that's so important because we're constantly, especially those who are perfectionists,
Oh,
uh,
yes,
we're
yes,
never satisfied with
yep,
where they are.
yeah, yeah.
And I'm speaking by personal experience. So it's so helpful to look at things in perspective of where you've
Hmm.
been and how much you've grown.
Yeah, because you'll be surprised.
Um,
I think it's always surprising in a good way to look back and see.
yeah, yeah. That self-reflection is powerful.
Hmm.
Oh, and then you mentioned I'm going back and forth to these notes um, that you cannot heal what you cannot reveal. And
Yep.
then you were talking about how you don't necessarily have to reveal it to other people, just acknowledging it yourself, revealing it
Acknowledgement
to
to yourself.
yourself, and just
Yeah,
having that self awareness,
yeah.
in order
It,
to
it,
heal.
it is easier for me to say what's wrong with you than for me to say what's wrong
Yeah.
with me. It's
Mm,
easier. And that tagline I started saying years ago, because it came from a personal conversation with God. You can't heal what you don't say. And I said, you want me to tell people my business? And he said, no, I want you to tell you. I
Mm,
want you to tell you because we justify a lot of things to self, or we just don't acknowledge things to self. And
mhm.
if we acknowledge it to self, that's all that really matters. But sometimes that's the hardest thing to do.
Yeah.
So you can't hear what you want revealed.
Yeah. And it's almost like going through a state of denial,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
where you don't
Absolutely.
acknowledge what it is that's going on because you're constantly living a life that's not yours, or you're
Right.
living a life that's not true and authentic
Right.
to yourself.
Authentic. It's not authentic. It's what other people want. And it's not even that. It's what you think other people want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where that people pleasing come in at.
Yep. And that shows up a lot around the holiday time.
Yeah.
I'm going to be around my family. Have I lost enough weight? Have I done this? Do I have a man to take this time? All these things. And we may be very content with where we are, but
Yes.
we're going to pretend, or, whatever the case may be around other people.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's something else that you said too, as it relates to you were talking about obligations and
Yeah.
feeling
Every
obligated,
word, every
whether it's
word.
obligated to do a certain thing,
Yep.
obligated to meet certain expectations,
Yep.
whether it's financially or even your time and your energy.
Yes.
Um,
Yes. I think
that's
that fits good with when you talk about divorce
mhm.
people. What are the kids feeling? Do they feel obligated to go here, here, and here? Or do they feel obligated, to call maybe an absentee parent because it's the holidays? All obligation is a very heavy word.
Yeah, yeah, it is because it really it kind of defines I have to,
Yes.
you know,
Yes.
because people do say I have to do this, I have to
Yep.
do that, but do you really?
Right.
Do you really have to?
You have to.
Right, but it's the expectations that you put on yourself
Yes.
that you feel like you're obligated to do certain things.
Yep.
Let's see. Tony said, should we not have expectations to protect ourselves from being hurt? Just expect the unexpected, maybe?
No. Because what'll happen, Tony, is you won't say the expectations, but you'll still have them. Or what if you don't have expectations and you're not happy? But the person, just say in a relationship, that's the easiest example. If I don't tell my husband I expect him to take out the trash, right? And he never takes it out, I'm going to be angry because whether or not I voice those expectations, I have them. So I don't know if you could ever live life without having expectations. I think that you have them, you just won't be speaking them. But it's important to share them after you determine if they're realistic. And then what are you doing? So if I'm expecting you, if we're in a relationship, I'm expecting you to spend $500 on me, but I'm spending $20 on you. My expectations are not realistic. If you don't have a job and I'm expecting this because this is what Susie and her husband did, that's not realistic. But that's a good question. I personally don't think you could live life without expectations. I think we have them, we just don't say them because we feel like, oh, he should know, or he already knows, or you know, they feel like they think like we think, and they may not.
Yeah.
It can
And
be scary to communicate your expectations because that's a level of vulnerability.
yeah.
It's a level of vulnerability. And so what'll happen is they may not reach it now. But if you present it correctly, if you have the right intentions, they could elevate to then do it.
Hmm.
But it is a level of vulnerability to say, hey, I expect this. And normally every expectation has a reason behind it. It could be the way you were brought up. It could be because this makes me feel this way, or, you know.
Yeah. And sometimes I think that um, we don't speak expectations because we don't really know what we want a lot
Mm-hmm.
of times.
Yep.
People
A
don't really say,
lot of times. We want them
especially
to
when
do better, or we want them to be different, but how?
right.
But what
Right,
does that look like?
right, right. And
Yeah,
until you
so that's
actually
good.
take the time to really think to yourself, okay, what is it that I'm really wanting?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And then how can I communicate that to whoever it
yeah,
is? And
yeah.
I think that's essential in boundaries because if you don't know
Absolutely.
how to set, what it is that you want and you need, then you can't even establish any boundaries.
Yeah. And I think what Treve said is good too. Sometimes we don't want to appear demanding, and that
Mhm.
is so, so true. But what I have found is if you tell them the expectations, they can then tell you if they can do it or not. And it's
Yeah,
okay to have expectations, but it is a thin line as a person communicating that. Like, dang, I don't want to put all this out there. But I mean, the reality is, this is what you want. But it's hard. Communication is not easy. It's important, but it ain't easy.
it's really not. Yeah, it's not hard. And then we don't want to. I think someone mentioned how denial is a comfort zone.
Mm,
And how
yeah.
you don't, and that's lack of acknowledging.
That's like, yeah, because as
You
long as I'm in denial, I don't have to hold myself accountable.
Yes.
I don't have to hold myself accountable because holding yourself accountable does not always feel good.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
That's
Yeah,
good. It is
because
a
that
com-
means that we got to change.
yes,
If we acknowledge, we got to
yes,
change.
yes, yes. And that happens when like I said, when I ask my clients do they drink water, but I have to ask myself sometimes.
Mhm.
Like, if I say I'm trying to lose weight. It sounds good to say that, and sometimes it's instinctively to say that. But if I'm honest with myself, did my choices do they align with that, or
Right,
it just sounded good to say it in the moment because I was in denial? And as long as I'm in that comfort zone of telling you I'm trying, you won't expect much from me. You
right,
won't be asking me about my extra pounds because I told you I'm trying.
right,
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's easier when we have clients that we serve
Oh
to
yes,
tell them what they should
yeah,
do.
yeah.
Uh,
You know how sometimes you're talking to a client and you be like, oh, I probably should just tuck that in my pocket for me. Just I'm gonna come back to that, Lord. I'm gonna come back.
right, right. Like as in, I know you were speaking through me, but you might have been speaking to me.
Yes, I'm gonna come back. We're gonna talk about that later, Lord. Okay, I got you. I got you.
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
got you.
Oh man, let me see here. And then one other thing that it was one thing that you said. I wish I should have been on the screen because I wanted to tell you. I wanted to tell you, go back. What you just said, so I can write this down. It was so good when you were talking about support, your support system,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
understanding the legitimacy of your mental well-being
Yeah.
and how to um, and in order for you to understand that, you have to know how that support system is supposed to help you,
Yes.
how they're supposed to
Yeah.
assist you.
Because you need to be very clear. You need to be very
Mhm.
clear. Research has shown, and people will tell you, just like say, if you say, "Hey, let me know if you need me. I'm always here." More than likely, they're not gonna contact you because you didn't really
Right,
tell them anything, and they don't have the emotional capacity to contact you. You need to say like, "Hey, I'm sending you groceries," or "Hey, this and that." So if I say, "Hey, Tiffany, I need you to check in on me," well, what does that look like? Like, do you need me
right.
to physically check in? Like, what do you need? I need
Mhm.
you to call me and ask these things, or I need you to. I had a friend would say, if you ask me how I am and I say fine, then I'm really not fine.
Right,
Like you
right.
got to be very clear.
Yeah, yeah. I think that goes back to having people that are in your circle. And I guess I could ask this too. When we talk about support system, I know because you did mention, seeking a professional.
Yeah.
So I would assume that professional
Yeah.
will be part of your support system.
Right. Right.
But sometimes people they just don't have family members, that they can rely on to be because that's the first people I think about.
Yeah.
Is my
Yeah.
family. Who
And
is
I
it
think
that I
that's what
can?
people do too. And they'll say, I don't have family. Or, like I
Mhm.
said, the family may be what you need support from. And
Right,
so
right.
you can look in non traditional ways. Like there's social media groups. Um, and this is just to get like support, not necessarily therapy. You get to find, because sometimes in groups we're doing too much. But like, okay, like the Teach
Mhm.
Me Tribe, I feel like that's a support system for somebody. If
Yeah,
all of a sudden we didn't see Treve post for a month, somebody should be calling somebody.
yeah,
So someone who knows your habits, or they know your patterns or routines. So if it's that, or if it's a neighbor, or if it is a parent on a PTA meeting, you don't have to tell them all your business. You could just be like, hey, it's getting darker outside earlier, can you just check in with me? Yeah. A life coach. Yeah, I think people listen, I think people should have like array of professionals, like a therapist, a coach, a trainer. Like you really have to have these professionals. You really have to have these professionals. But yeah,
yeah,
support system could be all of those things. Yes, honey.
yeah.
Sometimes the family, oh, child, let me tell you something. I tell
They
my clients
they
this. I
people
do
just like
sessions.
everybody else.
Listen, I do sessions on Thursday morning for Thanksgiving because it's just not always a good thing for people. The things
Yeah,
that people have to sit across from, or sit around, or, you know, even if it's nothing dramatic like that, even if it's nothing traumatic, not dramatic, even if it's nothing traumatic like that, you could have been a changed person. I'm not who you knew me as a month ago, or 6 months ago, or last Thanksgiving, and you constantly bringing it up. I don't
yeah,
need to be around that for my mental health.
right.
You remember
Yep.
when you were depressed? You remember when I'm not that anymore. So sometimes they may not be able to let it go.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's definitely one of those things where family can be good and bad
Yeah.
because family they've known you the longest,
Yes.
so they've seen you
Yes.
go through all of these changes throughout life, but they really don't know you.
Yes.
Who you are
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah.
Um,
That is so true. Yeah, we need it all. We need all, Tony.
yeah,
All.
yeah. They say it takes a village to raise a child, but I believe people just need villages. Period.
Yes.
We should always
Yes.
village.
Yes. That's what I've been telling people lately. Parents need villages. Adults need villages. Because I probably have. I had this conversation this morning. Come to think of it, it's hard for adults to find friends.
Yeah, it is.
Because in school you're always with these, you're always with people like kids and stuff. But when you are an adult, if it's not somebody at your job, or say now, a lot of people are working from home, or working remote, or they're in a certain department, they don't see many people, it can be really lonely as an adult.
Yeah,
It can be really lonely as an adult. And so we have to be very mindful to say, hey, I need you to check in on me, or, to go out and, you know, do self care, like all those things. It's important.
yeah. And
It's
I think it's harder around the holidays too because everybody's so busy,
Yes,
doing their things. Because I know I found myself
yes,
in this position because I was one of those ones that were just so busy around the holidays, and then all of a sudden I wasn't so busy
yeah,
around the
yep,
holidays because half of the reason I was busy was gone.
yep,
So, but I did not know how to reach out to
mm,
anyone to say, "Hey, um, I don't have anything to do. What you doing?"
right.
Or can I come over? Can I have Thanksgiving with you? Can I have Christmas
Hmm.
with you?
Yep,
Because I'm here by myself.
yeah, yeah,
So it's kind of hard to communicate that to people because you're thinking, oh, I don't want to bother them, or I don't want them to think
right,
that you
right,
know something is wrong. So I think we deal with a lot of that
yeah.
during the holiday season too.
A lot of self talk and overthinking.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't want to be a burden.
Mm-mm.
Yeah,
Mm-mm. No, but when you talk about the support system, when we actually have people that are in our corner and
mhm.
supporting us and understand our mental well-being, then they can't be there to support us.
Yeah, and we have to
It's just
let
up to
them
us to
help.
communicate that.
We have to let them help because it is hard to ask for help. So
Yeah.
when you ask for help and people offer, then you have to work to allow them to help because people do want to help. You have to allow them to help. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tony.
Well, I love that. We're gonna end on that because that was so good. We have to allow the people in our
Yes,
lives to help us
yeah.
during this holiday season. And I tell you, KD, I tell you, when you came in May, I said we got to have you back um, in October or later on in the year. And this was so good, so good. And
Thank
I know
you.
this is something that is going to be things that we can constantly go back on and to revisit.
Yeah.
Um, And let me apologize to the Teach Me tribe for whatever reason it would not come up in the tribe, but I had to share it from my personal page, so they kind of got the information kind of late. But I hope you all still got a lot out of it. Um, and whoever watches the replay, please hashtag replay. And Katie, let everybody know where they can follow you or reach you at.
Okay, so you can find me on Facebook under Katesha KD Reid. I have a Facebook community for women who are wives and mothers. So my goal as a coach is to empower women to rediscover themselves outside of being a wife and a mom so that they can show up more happy, more authentic, and more whole. And so I shared all my stuff in the group because I couldn't remember my website, my new website. But I did share.
Got a new website? Yeah, definitely.
I did.
Put put it in there, and I'll make sure I share it in YouTube as well for everyone who will see um, this particular feature for the month. But definitely wishing everyone well in the holidays and praying that you utilize these tools, not just during the holidays, but all year long. And as a reminder, we have Q&A with Treve coming up on Monday. So we definitely look forward to that. Another powerhouse coming back, and
Yes,
we'll continue our discussion on emotional wellness as well as we transition through this month. But thank you again, KD, and thank you
absolutely.
everyone for joining us tonight.
Absolutely.
We really enjoyed everyone's participation and engagement with us tonight. So until then, we will see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye bye.